Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. Let me give you a reminder here, link to today, providing accessibility, affordability to the average investor. Look at this. They've now grown to process over 14,500 investments totaling over $210 million. And they've got weekly, or at least today, a 5K minimum on the Link2 platform. They are one of my sponsors. You can go and buy Link2 private equity. That is my largest holding on Link2 right now, personally. The link's in the top of the description on that. Now, one thing that's got me very concerned about all this dollar being dethroned as the world reserve currency is the fact that CNBC is not covering it. The fact that they're not covering it tells me it must be true, that there's a real threat, because when they do cover things, it goes more in the category of propaganda to me. So, then we have this, and folks, as you watch this stuff, make no mistake, this is all intentional. This is controlled demolition. These people that are running this country, the Janet Yellens, these are not stupid people, which means that it's intentional.
When you're taking the debt from $32 to $50 trillion, are you concerned who's going to buy that debt? And also, at what rate they'll expect to be compensated for buying riskier and riskier debt. Are you concerned about that?
Well, if the real net interest cost of the debt remains low relative to GDP, and we're on a sustainable fiscal.
Well, we're not on a sustainable path. You're going to drive the debt from somewhere around $32 trillion up to about $50 trillion, correct?
50 trillion.
The debt from 32 to 50 trillion.
That is insane. Let me write that down. I got my handy notepad here. Now, then we've got this one. This is the globalists. This is the woman that runs the IMF with Christine Lagarde and all this. They act like they're just oblivious. They're not oblivious. This is intentional.
Madam MD.
I think we are not paying sufficient attention to the law of unintended consequences. We take decisions with an objective in mind and rarely think through what may happen that is not our objective. And then we wrestle with the impact of it. Take any decision that is a massive.
Anyway, you don't have to hear any more of that. The point is they're all acting like, oh, well, we've made mistakes. No, none of this is a mistake. This is intentional. Now, this came out today. Now, this is something we've been saying for a long time on this channel, at least. And I know Brad Combs has been talking about this a lot. Just in, U.S. Treasury says decentralized crypto markets threaten national security. Now, anytime we've even said anything bordering on how they could outlaw Bitcoin or ban Bitcoin, or we get I control my keys and therefore they can't take my, well, yeah, technically they can't take it, but they can pass laws and do all sorts of creative things to make your Bitcoin not worth owning. Taxes, you name it. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. But what I want to bring to your attention, look at the wording of this. U.S. Treasury says decentralized crypto markets threaten national security. Look at this. This is from Kendra Hill. A lot of people thought, oh, that's crazy talk. Kendra Hill, somebody that disappeared off social media, that's just a bunch of crazy talk. This was said back in 2018, folks. Cryptocurrency will be made illegal. This is not a maybe, this is a warning. Nothing is left up to chance. Our world is always planned years in advance. If you plan to fail, you're planning to fail, and failure is not an option. Allowing additional currencies to exist when the world is only using one would be disruptive, so it will not be tolerated and it will be easier to stop than you think. The Bitcoin, let's call it Bitcoin illusion. I'm writing this down. The illusion is that Bitcoin, for example, is untouchable. The reality is that it is government controlled through the use of mining pools. Any cryptocurrency aiming to be decentralized digital currency will not survive. The one that we will use has already been chosen. I'll say it again. Any cryptocurrency aiming to be a decentralized digital currency will not survive. The one that we will use has already been chosen. Let's go to that bulletin again. U.S. Treasury says decentralized crypto markets threaten national security. They don't even have to pass a law, folks. Through OFAC, my understanding, which is part of the U.S. Treasury, they can declare national security and outright make something illegal. Now, remember this thread? This thread came out back in October 18th, 2021. It says, first I present to you Exhibit 1. This is OFAC, which stands for Office of Foreign Asset Control. This is a division of the Department of the Treasury that just said decentralized crypto is national security threat. They are a sanctioning body of the U.S. Treasury, and they consider XRP a currency. But look here. This is OFAC. Look what it says right here. Under presidential national emergency powers, OFAC, let's write that down, emergency powers, all right? Under emergency powers, OFAC carries out its activities against foreign states as well as a variety of other organizations and individuals like terrorist groups deemed to be a threat to U.S. national security. Right here, XRP. What is the structure of a digital currency? Anyway, they're calling it digital currency right there, which means they can tell Gary Gensler and the SEC to kick rocks. OFAC is standing on the sidelines while everything is put in place and rails are built. The SEC lawsuit is just, now I'm not saying it is, this is what they said. The SEC lawsuit is just being used to stall and get weak hands out. They called XRP a digital currency. This report, Then here they show a job posting from Ripple, which was already filled, still trying to find out. It says, this role will be focused on managing day-to-day AML, CFT, and sanctions OFAC program activities. Then we go to this. This is Katie Hawn. Remember who Katie Hawn is. She's the one that went to Andreessen Horowitz. This definitely goes in All the World's a Stage file. Remember what Katie Hawn, I've told you 1,000 times, they know who created Bitcoin, folks. Katie Hawn was the one that was put in charge of trying to kill Bitcoin. And I think she said that she found out that you couldn't kill it or something like that. And so her role became different. But look what she says on stage. And she just happens to be sitting on stage with Lowell Ness and Nancy Wotas, who are from the ETHgate saga. Watch this. She's talking about OFAC.
I think what Stan just made about OFAC is a really important point. One of the things I've seen is that some of the traditional players that have been involved, they don't always come from the East Coast, but from the East Coast traditional financial institutions who are getting into the space or looking more at tokens, their first thing they talk about is OFAC. Whereas a lot of people who are new to the space of a financially regulated space don't even really have the first clue about what OFAC is. OFAC is the Office of Foreign Assets Control within the Department of the Treasury and yields really heavy penalties. And also it's strict liability. So unlike the SEC, unlike the CFTC, unlike DOJ, who can exercise their discretion, prosecutorial discretion, or the SEC picking the clearest cases, because obviously they can't go after everything they perceive to be a security. You have OFAC with a strict liability regime. And, PayPal found this out the hard way and paid a multi-million-dollar fine for a $17,000 transaction. And so I think OFAC is an agency that will definitely be a relevant player in this space and hasn't been talked about as much as I would have expected. So
there you go. Then you got this. I was showing you this yesterday. The video I put out yesterday on this digital currency wars where Gary Gensler was present, it got like 80,000 views in 24 hours, folks, for a reason. Watch this. If I can get it to play.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
This was conducted in 2019 at Harvard University, folks.
Digital Currency Wars and National Security Crisis Simulation,
ahead,
hosted by the
Vice
Belfer
President.
Center's Economic Diplomacy Initiative. The Economic Diplomacy Initiative, led by Nick Burns, Larry Summers, and Aditi Kumar, aims to provide analysis and recommendations to policymakers on challenges at the intersection of economic policy and national security. This simulation was developed by a group of Kennedy School students who created the scenario, delivered policy briefs, and staffed the principals all week. So to start, I want to briefly explain where we are right now.
Who's replacing
Today,
SWIFT?
the U.S. is the dominant economic power, in part because of the strength of the U.S. dollar and U.S. financial institutions. No matter how you cut the international monetary system, the dollar is the primary currency. The U.S. leverages this power to do everything from setting trade policy to sanctioning adversaries. We aim to challenge the notion that the U.S. dollar and the U.S.-led monetary system will always retain this lead. With the developments of digital currencies, things could change quickly. It's hard to predict the future, but in this simulation, we'll play out one scenario to learn how the rise of digital currencies could reshape geopolitics.
All right. And then there's this one. If I can play it.
Scenario takes place 2 years from today, on November 19th, 2021. We have simulated a world in which one big thing has changed. In March 2020, the People's Bank of China launched a sovereign digital currency known as the digital yuan. China is the only major economy with such a currency in circulation, although several nations, including the UK, Canada, and Israel, are actively considering similar projects. The launch of this digital currency is part of China's digital Silk Road strategy to build its global political and economic influence.
Digital Silk
From investments
Road.
in tech giants like Huawei to the creation of smart cities along the Belt and Road, this new digital currency is the natural next step.
All right. And then you had this part. Watch this.
Who met earlier this morning is very clear. 3 important things that we want to talk about. First, we're going to review the normal set of response options that we have in response to a North Korean missile test and provocation cycle. Then second, which is the emphasis for the president, is that we want to talk about the potential threat to U.S. national interests by the digital yuan and maybe move off of SWIFT. And of course, we'll conclude by saying what our interests are at stake here and trying to come up with options for the president so that we can give her a holistic strategy. So before we jump right in, who met earlier this morning is very clear.
X off of there. And then finally, there's this part.
The global economy will be, in fact, bifurcated.
Again, I think we're decades away from China developing the robust capital markets and the legal systems to compete with the U.S. dollar. But to your question, yes, other countries have adopted the CIPS. Russia has back in 2019. They entered into a bunch of agreements. And so they're moving value, money, outside of the SWIFT system. And more, all respect to the State Department, we won't be able to use SWIFT. We've sort of weaponized SWIFT, but we won't be able to use it that much longer.
As always, Madam Vice President, excellent.
Okay. So you can see all that. Then we had this. If you remember, just as a refresher, this was right before, this was literally the month before Jay Clayton dropped the lawsuit on Ripple. U.S. intelligence chief sends John Ratcliffe wrote a letter to Jay Clayton and said that the Chinese posed a national security risk, and it was all about the risk with crypto. So Jay Clayton, a month later, decides now's a great time to drop a lawsuit on Ripple, which would be the great hope to compete with China with this digital yuan idea. Does that make any sense to you? It's never made sense to me. I have this out of place, but I'll show it anyway. XRP Productions, which is a parody. It says, huge pump for XRP today, or I make digital asset investor unload the dishwasher and do his own yard work. Well, this is what I say. No, from Elf. Great shot, great movie, great scene. Then we got this from India. Scoop. India is planning, there's another thumbnail, folks. Scoop. The word scoop always works. Scoop. India is planning to scale up CBDC users to 1 million and is prioritizing finding a solution to the challenge of an offline version of the digital rupee to foster financial inclusion. Now, the Cowboy Crypto, who is the official cowboy of the Digital Asset Investor channel, showed several articles about Ripple in India. Why is Ripple more popular among Indian investors than others? India's federal bank teams up with Ripple for international payments. Ripple claims 50% share in India inroad to global market. U.S.-based crypto company Ripple planning to expand its workforce in India. Policy framework for digital assets in India put out by Ripple. Ripple to deliver first real-time payments from Oman to India. What a coincidence all these things are. Wheat Say Win put this out. Look at this. He says, introducing the unhosted .exchange, your new browser-based DEX. So Decentralized Exchange, this is going to be hooked to the Sum wallet, is my understanding. And you may have to sign up for Sum Pro. I'm not sure if that's how you get early access or get access at all. I'm not sure, but you'll have to check that out. If that is what you have to do, I will be becoming a pro user myself. There's nothing there. Check this out. Now, it's not a coincidence, folks, that all of a sudden the topic of gold confiscation, after literally 8-10 years of being in this, for the first time I am seeing Bitcoin maxis acknowledging the possibility of a Bitcoin ban or Bitcoin confiscation. And I've never seen that before. That is a completely new acknowledgement. And I'll show you here in a second. But this was from Zero Hedge. They're bringing up the gold heist. Then Caitlin Long, who's a Bitcoin maxi, is retweeting. I didn't see anywhere in her tweet where she actually covers the most important thing that Robert Kennedy said in his tweet, but she's talking about how his tweet got 5 million views. This is the most significant part of that tweet. The Fed will initially limit its CBDC to interbank transactions, but we should not be blind to the obvious danger that this is the first step in banning and seizing Bitcoin as the Treasury did with gold 90 years ago. Folks, then we've got this. Ryan Selkis. It's simple. We need U.S. leaders who oppose efforts to ban or restrict the use and personal possession of Bitcoin and other digital assets. These guys smell what's cooking. Remember, this was Kendra Hill back in 2018, I believe. You know what else she said besides warning that Bitcoin or crypto could be made illegal? Here's what else she said. Everyone who has a solid understanding of what XRP is will agree that it has a bright future. When speculating on how bright the future will be, the common agreement is that reaching a value beyond $100 is certainly realistic. I have reason to believe $100 is nothing compared to what is to come for long-term holders. Within 5 years, XRP will be known as digital gold. We're in year 5 right now, folks, 2023. Digital gold, I have a notebook of information explaining in great detail why and how this all will take place. If there's anything you wish to know about XRP, feel free to leave a comment. If you are one of the non-believers in XRP, then I strongly encourage you to leave a comment explaining why it is not in your portfolio. I guarantee that any doubt you may have will be erased in a single response. I've never done this before on this channel, folks, but I'm going to do it now. Kendra Hill, if you're listening to my voice, there's a way that you can prove to me that you are you. Send me a direct message. Send it through someone. I want pictures of what's in that notebook you're referring to. Send them on, because I am ready to digest what you were told way back when. I don't have any inside sources, and I'd love to have one. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that she seems to think that $100 is nothing. And I do too. Thank you for listening.